Now we have our next invited speaker, Venerable Thich Nu Tinh Quang. She is one of my nerdy friends and sister for many years. Her pronouns are she and her, and she's a Zen teacher devoted to encouraging self-responsibility and awareness through the teaching and practice of Buddha Dharma, without superstition, leading to a better understanding of the true nature of reality. She teaches in Little Heron Zen Hermitage in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And although these time zones are so horrible, she is here. Welcome with me, Venerable Thich Nu Tinh Quang. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here today. And I wanted to just begin by asking this question. Would it interest you to know that the Buddha didn't say anything about LGBTQ? He said that he teaches that there is suffering and an end to suffering. Based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, Buddhism is considered a way of life for more than 500 million individuals across the globe. It's the fourth largest religion in the world. And it is largely built on concepts that foster individual enlightenment, and it encourages personal responsibility. And sometimes it is described as more of a philosophy or a psychology than a religion. Though it is impossible to present a comprehensive view of Buddhism within this context, I hope that this brief talk will lead you to further explore the religion if you haven't already done so. Though varied in practice and beliefs, the majority of individuals who subscribe to Buddhism belong to one of three major schools of thought. There's the Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and Vajrayana Buddhism. I'm probably not saying very much that you don't already know, but I just wanted to lay some groundwork. Theravada Buddhism is also known as Southern Buddhism. It is viewed as a more traditional form of Buddhism. It is primarily in southern areas of Asia. It is also considered the oldest and the most orthodox school of the three. And conversely, Mahayana is also known as Northern Buddhism, and it is a more diverse form. And Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as Tibetan Buddhism, is also known as Tibetan Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism and Vietnamese Buddhism incorporates major aspects of both Theravada and Mahayana. In the West, Theravada Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, which is a branch of Mahayana Buddhism, and Tibetan Buddhism are most prominent. And the basis for all schools of Buddhism includes the three universal seals. That's dukkha, anatta, and anicca. It includes the Four Noble Truths, which is philosophical part of the Buddhist teachings. And it goes into the 12 links of dependent origination and the Eightfold Path. And as a branch of the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts serve as voluntary guidelines for the basis of Buddhist morality. And they include an individual choice, or a willingness to be. And the first one, I won't go into them too much because I'm going to give you all 5, but the one that we're most interested in here for this talk is the third one. But the first one is aware of the suffering caused by violence. I undertake to refrain from killing or committing violence toward living beings. I will attempt to treat all beings with compassion and loving kindness. And if you can keep this precept, then you can keep all of the precepts. And the second one is aware of the suffering caused by theft. I undertake the training to refrain from stealing, to refrain from taking what is not freely given. And I will practice generosity and will be mindful of how to use the world's resources. And the third precept is aware of suffering caused by sexual misconduct. I undertake the training to refrain from using sexual behavior in ways that are harmful to myself and to others. I will attempt to express my sexuality in ways that are beneficial and bring joy. The fourth precept is aware of the suffering caused by harmful speech. I undertake the training to refrain from lying, from harsh speech, from idle speech or gossip. I will attempt to speak and write in ways that are both truthful and appropriate. And the fifth precept, aware of the suffering caused by alcohol and drugs. I undertake the training to refrain from misusing intoxicants that dull and confuse the mind. And I will attempt to cultivate a clear mind and an open heart. And although there is no general consensus with regard to sexual orientation and gender identity within Buddhism, usually the third precept is most often referenced when discussing gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer issues. Sexual orientation, specifically, was not elaborated upon by Siddhartha Gautama, nor was there any reference or guidance for lay people regarding sexual orientation or same-sex behavior within the Pali Canon. These are the scriptural texts that hold the Buddha's original teachings. The Vinaya, a Buddhist text for male and female monks, forbids Buddhist male and female monks from having sexual relationships with men, women, and those of other genders. This is interpreted as those with, when we talk about pandanka, these are interpreted as those with indeterminate sexual characteristics. or prostitutes. And these textual references do not target LGBTQ people specifically, as everyone within the monastic order is expected to refrain from all forms of sexual relations. And this practice is common within all Buddhist monastic traditions. Now, Zen Buddhism does not make a distinction between same-sex and opposite-sex relationships. Instead, the expectation is not to harm, exploit, or manipulate others, because this would directly violate the third precept. For instance, Zen Buddhists often refer to hedonism, ascetic masochism, and prostitution as practices that violate the middle way. And regarding Tibetan Buddhism, the Dalai Lama's perspectives are complex and they are evolving. On the positive side, he has publicly condemned violence against LGBTQ people and have been reported to have said, if the two people have taken no vows of chastity and neither is harmed, why should it not be acceptable? And yet, in a press conference at one time, he commented that from a Buddhist point of view, lesbian and gay sex is generally considered sexual misconduct. And his views have been mixed, and they're somewhat in flux. Because during a meeting with representatives of LGBTQ people of the LGBTQ community, the Dalai Lama reportedly showed interest in how modern scientific research might create new understanding of the Buddhist texts, acknowledging a willingness to consider the possibility that some of the teachings may be specific to a particular culture and historic context. And my observation of this within Buddhism is that much of these beliefs come from a cultural and historic context, but nothing to do with what the Buddha instructed. I had a discussion with a nun in Vietnam, and she believed that LGBTQ was wrong, but changed her mind after I asked her several questions. These questions were about when and where she learned that it was wrong. It isn't in the Buddhist teachings. In 2007, Thich Nu Tinh told a group of people in Plum Village, "I believe that we all have the need to love and to be loved. And life without love is not pleasant. It is suffering." Same-sex marriage has been legal in 2 provinces of Canada since 2003 and across the entire country since 2005. A wedding in Buddhism is a secular event. Even in Buddhist countries, a wedding takes place in front of a secular official, then in a church or other place of worship, a temple. So in the case of Buddhism, a monastic can do a blessing ceremony, which is very much like a wedding ceremony, after the official wedding. And I know of some Buddhist monks here who do legal weddings. However, they've taken their licensing through a secular body. And because of Buddhism's core theme to attain enlightenment, the path one chooses to take within the religion is largely personal, as is one's beliefs. And therefore, most Buddhist literature indicates that opposition to or support for marriage rights for same-sex couples is a personal rather than a religious statement. However, if you go by the Buddha's non-teachings on this subject, it is a non-issue. Because Buddhism in the West has no central governing body, it's not possible to state clear policies regarding non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people. But most practicing Buddhists will favor laws that protect LGBTQs against discrimination in employment, housing, marriage, and public accommodations. And why? Because of the Buddhist teachings on metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And in general, there is no rule prohibiting LGBTQ people from serving as Buddhist monks or nuns. And though some select temples and monasteries may prohibit the ordination of LGBTQ people, I have not personally seen this occur here in Canada. There is perhaps a slight divergence from that. When I took my first ordination, one of the questions I was asked is, are you neither male nor female? And I was confused by the question. What I was being asked was if I had physical characteristics of both sexes. And why would that matter, I asked, if monastics are celibate? And the answer I got was, from their view, a practical one. From their view, they wouldn't know whether to place that person with male or female monks. In the Mahayana, not just the Mahayana, it's in other schools of Buddhism as well, Guan Yin, known variously as Kuan Yin, Kuan Te Am, Canon, Kuan Sium, or Avalokiteshvara, is the archetype of great compassion and is sometimes portrayed as a man, sometimes as a woman, and sometimes in androgynous form. And always, though, Kuan Yin represents the deeply, profoundly felt impulse to reach out. And this reaching out is the body itself, awakening. I will close with the words of the third Zen ancestor, Zhengzang, who wrote or is purportedly to have written the Sensin Meng. To come directly in harmony with this reality, just simply say when doubt arises, not to. In this not to, nothing is separate, nothing is excluded. No matter when or where enlightenment means entering this truth. And this truth is beyond extension or diminution in space or time. In it, a single thought is 10,000 years. Emptiness here, emptiness there, but the infinite universe stands always before your eyes. Infinitely large and infinitely small. No difference, for definitions have vanished and boundaries are seen. So too with being and non-being. Don't waste time in doubts and arguments that have nothing to do with this. One thing. All things move among and intermingle without distinction. And to live in this realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection. To live in this faith is the road to non-duality, because the non-dual is one with the trusting mind. I will close with that. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.